Hi, I'm Sam Flying Kite, and welcome to the Horror Show. This is the Deep Dive edition, and this week we're doing The Woman in Black. Harry Potter's in it, so you already know it's gonna be a good movie. I'm not gonna go over, like, the tiny details, except for, like, maybe the budget and box office, but I'm gonna do this whole bit again. Based on the classic ghost story, The Woman in Black tells the tale of Arthur Kipps, who's played by Harry Potter, a lawyer who was forced to leave his young son and travel to a remote village attend to the affairs of the recently deceased owner of El Marsh House. Working alone in the old mansion, Kipps begins to uncover the town's tragic and tortured secrets, and his fears escalate when he discovers that the local children have been disappearing under mysterious circumstances. When those closest to him become threatened by the vengeful woman in black, Kipps must find a way to break the cycle of terror. I don't know if that was better than the other one, but you decide if it was better than the other one. They're both out, so you tell me in the comments if that synopsis, how I went about that synopsis was better, or if the other way was better. Gotta let me know, so I could, work on that, kind of, whoa. But I really like this movie. This was really good, and I'm kind of surprised a little bit. On IMDb, it's, how did I not write that down? On IMDb, jeez, dude. On IMDb, The Woman in Black is a 6.4 out of 10. Almost 200k people voted. And I'm kind of surprised. I feel like that should be higher. I feel like this movie should be higher. Although, I'm kind of curious. Because right now, The Woman in Black is almost certainly a top 5 ghost movie for me. Okay. I was going to compare it to another one, but that other one's like a 6.2 out of 10. In which is like, I don't know, man. It seems really, I guess. Anyway. The budget for this movie was like 15 to 17 million, which is, I guess, technically low for big movies, because this was I don't think this wasn't like Universal or something, but like, it was still like a big movie. A lot went into it, company production wise, and this movie made like 129 million worldwide. And that's really good. It's so good, they made a sequel, and that sequel allegedly crapped to the bed. So, I haven't seen it myself, but that's what people say. Apparently. Man, this movie is a realistic movie. Now, it's a supernatural ghost movie, so how realistic can a ghost movie be, right? To a skeptic, right? But to, someone who believes in, any kind of religion, there is always going to be some supernatural that you have to believe. It's just, how much? Like, do you believe in ghosts, or do you believe in angels and demons, or both? Because, I guess it makes sense. If purgatory exists, then it makes sense for, like, ghosts to be real. But if purgatory doesn't exist, then I don't think ghosts as, like, that's, like, someone that used to be alive. I would more say that ghosts, in that case, would more be of, people, or not people, it's, like, angels or demons that are using the kind of shell of someone who was alive. Or a ghost, kind of how it's played out in movies, are just very specific emotions of a person who died. So in, like, The Ring, in The Grudge, it's rage. In this movie, it's rage. In Mama, it's love. You're trapped in that emotion. But, and to be fair, purgatory is kind of like a cycle of sorts, where you're kind of reliving the same thing, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, but that's my understanding of purgatory. That's like, you're in this cycle until the cycle is broken. But I guess the problem in this movie is that it's funny. Before I get into the story, the short form answer is that the main characters in this movie go about the antagonist of the movie as though they understand it, as though they think that they know how to fix it, you know. Oh, I gotta break the cycle. But that's not gonna fix it. And if anything is going to fix it, what they're doing simply is not. And as a Christian, they definitely went about it the wrong way, because the only mentions of God or Jesus or whatever is just in people using the phrases, you know, hell and whatnot. And then some characters doing the holy, what's it called? Crap. Dang it, I don't remember what it's called. I feel bad now. But that thing, you know, that's like clear Christian symbolism. But like, it doesn't give off the impression that like they're atheists. If anything, Sam Daly or Mr. Daly, his character, that he's probably atheistic, or that's just, or not really, no, because he believes in the afterlife. Never mind. My point ultimately is that as a Christian, you try to use God, right, to defeat evilness, and when that doesn't happen, then typically I would say bad things happen. And in this movie, it's a bit of mixed feelings because of how it ends, because you could view it two ways. But let me get, you know, storyline wise. So Arthur Kipps, it's him, he has a son and a nanny because his wife died in childbirth. It's really sad. And Arthur, you know, the dad, Harry Potter, is down in the dumps about it. And he wants to, you know, help the boy get raised, and, you know, that kind of thing, right? Typical dad stuff. This is like 5 years later kind of thing. Maybe like 7 or 8 years later. I'm not saying 6 or 7, but I just said it. And he's a lawyer. He works at a firm, but he's about to get fired. And this is his last chance to not get fired. And he has to close down this house out in the middle of nowhere, effectively. So he goes out there, and the whole town effectively is like, it's like Dracula in the sense of like someone's like, I need someone to take me to Count Dracula's house. And they're all like, you can't. Why? You just can't. They're not telling him why. And it's like, honestly, if the townspeople were to be that blunt and honest about it, the movie doesn't happen. But they weren't. So, I love, that's a cliche I love, because it's just hilarious. I would love to make a movie or watch a movie where the townspeople actually tell the guy, hey, don't go out late at night because there's going to be werewolves out and about, or don't go to the castle because he's a vampire. And then it's up to the guy to choose or not to choose. But they're just, you know, like, oh, I'm so afraid. It's like, what are you afraid of? No, I'm not going to tell you. Anyway. He goes there, and then he starts noticing weird things. Not at, you know, I mean, kind of at first, but not like big things that are like, huh? It's really slow and gradual, you know, him noticing things. But I guess the villain explained is that the woman in black was this lady who had a son, and the son was taken from her because she was deemed unwell, kind of, to raise him. And he ended up dying in a tragic accident, and she was just super overwhelmed by grief and rage that she, you know, ended up killing herself. And then her ghost stuck around and is now a curse, effectively, to the town, or to whoever goes to the house, in a sense, kind of like The Grudge, but not as... The woman in black is still violent and still that kind of thing, but it's just a tad bit different. But it is like The Grudge in a sense. Whenever someone goes to the house, the woman in black goes out to the town and makes the children effectively kill themselves. And it's really like, whoa. And the whole point is that, like, if they took her son away, then she's gonna take them away, kind of thing. That's the reasoning behind the ghost. So Arthur Kipps, over the the week that he's there, or the few days that he's there, is basically unpacking all this because of all the papers and things he finds. And because he's there, some children end up dying in the village, and the townspeople want him gone, obviously, because they want the disturbances to end. But Arthur ends up, having the idea that, like, if I find the son, because the woman in black's son's body was never found. He's like, if I could find the body and bring the body back, then she's gonna go and, rest in peace now. So he ends up getting the body. And after a kind of odd exchange, he, it seems like, oh, it's over. But it's not over, because the whole point of the woman in black is she's never going to forgive. Never going to forgive. Never going to forgive. Never going to forgive. And see, I guess like a couple of days before, or the whole plan was that he was going to be there, and then the nanny and his son was going to go there to that town. And at the end of the movie, they get there and there's a reuniting, but the dad's a bit distracted talking to the other character. Arthur Kipps is distracted talking to Sam, and the woman in black tells his son to go on the rails as the train's coming. And Arthur realizes that he sees this, his son. He runs to the track to save him, but they both get ran over by the train. You don't see their bodies, but you do see them in the afterlife, in a kind of mirror image of where they were just at. And they see his wife kind of down the rails, and they reunite with her. And then they walk off into the fog, and that's effectively the end of the movie. And so you could there's a few points in this movie that are really interesting thoughts. I would imagine, as a parent, you want to guide your children, but you don't want to be super strict or super loose. The goal is to kind of be somewhere in the middle, where you raise them enough to, show them, hey, here's life and how the rules of life are, right? But, like, if you do X, Y, and Z, there's consequences to your actions, because that's how life is. But you don't want to be, like, super strict, super protective, super XYZ, because, they have to grow up at some point. And the thing in this movie that seems really interesting is that for the most part, I think for all the part, that whenever the kids died or whenever they killed themselves, the parents were never around. And in the very end, when the parent was around, he was distracted. He wasn't really there. So it kind of feeds back into the idea that, like, children who get kidnapped in real life, if it's someone that they know, or someone that kind of knows them, they understand that the parents aren't really there. They could just snatch them up, and it's gonna be, like stealing candy from a baby, except it's not stealing candy, it's stealing the baby. And I thought that was really interesting, because unfortunately, I think that's realistic, and it's really sad that that's kind of how life is. But free will, and that's definitely a hard pill to swallow, and that's a really blunt way of putting it. But in life, there's good people and there's bad people, and the hope in life is that the good people can overpower the bad people. And if that can't happen, if that doesn't happen, then it's really sad and unfortunate. So when the woman in black takes the children, it's just really interesting seeing that correlation, that where are the parents? They're not around. And it's just a interesting correlation. But then of course the ending, the thing that's interesting that, kind of mixed feelings about is that she didn't forgive him, even though he brought back the body of the boy. But one could say, and to an odd, strange degree, that she did save him, or that she did, give him a break. I mean, getting ran over by a train, like in front of a train, sounds like a really swift, painful in the moment, but swift death. And on the other side of eternity is, his wife waiting for him. And it's just like, it's really interesting because this whole movie, he's been down in the dumps, kind of grieving in a sense, has not moved on. Probably would never have moved on. And the only way of moving on would have been with the boy. But it's really interesting to think about because who knows how his character would have played out. His son probably would have gone into World War I. Actually, that's like a real cool, interesting question I have. Because this takes place in like London, the UK, I think. So it like. Oh, okay. I mean, the son would grow up and kind of be around for like World War II, but like, yeah, it's really interesting because the movie, I guess, takes place around 1916 or 1917, and that's when that's like the prime years of World War I, kind of. Although I guess it could have taken place around 1906. Anyway, the point being is that his son, is probably going to go to war, and who knows how their lives would have turned out. And it's just you could see it either way, as like, I'm not over, or you know what, I'm gonna make sure your death is swift so you could be reunited with your wife again, kind of thing. But then they made that sequel, and so I don't really think it's the happy kind of ending. I think it's more of the, I'm never gonna forgive, and you came in my house, so now you're going to die. And the only kind of good thing in it, in which, it's all over, and you're with your wife now. And you can walk off into the sunset, or I guess, in their case, walk off into the fog. But, yes, this is a really deep movie, and it's a very scary movie, too. And I love it when a movie can do this kind of thing. When it makes you kind of think about stuff and just makes you wow. I love a good ghost story. But I really love a ghost film. And like a movie like The Fog is like a ghost film, or like a ghost story. Wait, actually, which one would I want to pick? There's like two different kinds of ghost movies. There's the one that's actually trying to be serious / realistic, and then the other one that's like, it might try to be serious, but like it's literally a story. It's just a story. And there's too many questions to ask when it comes to the logistics of details and such. But like a movie like The Woman in Black, it seems like it's a realistic kind of movie, or it tries to be realistic as possible. But yeah, I mean, I really like this movie. I really like how the movie turned out, and I find the ending a very interesting ending. And honestly, this might be like top 5 favorite plot twist ending. I'm trying to think about it. because, like, you don't see that coming until it happens. And it's like, wow. It's so tough. Yeah, there's, like, a laundry list of movies with great endings because the endings are, like... But then there's also, you know, plot twist endings. And those endings could be really good, too. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny that this is a PG-13 movie, to be honest. But I see it. It makes me wonder, like, how would this movie have been if it was rated R? Would it have been better? Would they have shown... They probably would have shown more. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting discussion because this whole movie, he's, like, missing his wife. And you know what? There's, like, kind of throughout the movie... Or, like, one time in the movie, his character is, you know, he says, Arthur Kipps says something along the lines of how he feels like his wife is kind of with him wherever he goes. And then as soon as he dies, his wife is kind of right there. And it's, like, really interesting because, like, maybe she's following him in the afterlife, waiting for him to pass. Makes you kind of wonder if she was like, hey, woman in black, can you, like, kill him so that, you know, we could be reunited again? And she was like, no problem, G. That's awful. But anyway. I'm Sam. Flying Kite. This is the deep dive of the horror show, specifically of The Woman in Black. And I love this movie. I always kind of like, I don't have a concrete top 5 horror movies, or top 5 movies in general. I know what my favorite horror movie is, or my favorite movie of all time, which is a horror movie. It's a Phantasm. It's like, obviously. But, I don't know what, like, my top 5 of all time would be. It's like, I had one at one point, but, like, to be completely real and honest, it's so difficult to have 5 favorite movies when you've seen not all, but when you've seen so many movies. That is so difficult to pick top 5. And if you did, then it's like, well, it has to change over the course of time. It has to, or at least aspects of it have to. Like, maybe if I made one, 5 would be, you know, The Woman in Black, but, like, next year if I did a top 5 list, which, to be completely real and fair, I really need to do a top 5 list at some point. It's just, you know, it might be something else. And so it's just difficult, you know, figuring that out. And actually, like, yes, this is it. But, like, it does take a lot of thought. And someone who overthinks all the time, it's like, good luck. But anyway, I will see y'all next week. Goodbye.